Welcome, Mr. Bill Ashinawa.
Good afternoon, gentlefolk. Hey, Jewel. Jayla.
Hi. Good afternoon or evening,
How
I
you
guess
doing?
now.
Good. Oh, he's not on this one. It's a different room.
Oh, Lindsay, welcome.
Oh, there she is.
Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Hey, child.
We have a few more people we're waiting for. Our board president, Frank Bouvet, will soon be with us. Have Dr. Nataki to join us. And after which,
Hello, Yomi. It's Kelly Jordan. How you doing, man?
Brother Kelly, how are you, sir?
I see
really.
my friends Jewel Harper and Bill Eisenhower.
Hi, Kelly.
Yeah.
Mr. Kelly Jordan, how are you?
I'm good.
Hi, Kelly.
Hey, Jewel.
Well, thank you for joining us, Brother Kelly. Thank you.
Well, I see our friend from Arabia Mountain, Victoria Burgos, is here.
Yeah.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
Columbus and Miss Mary, good evening.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, how y'all doing, everybody?
Oh, Mr. Columbus, welcome. Welcome. To see your face, man. Thank you.
Oh, long time no see, Mary Gay.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you.
While we're waiting for Frank, if we just start with introduction so that we all know who's here, starting with myself. Me knowing the equal action, and let's go that route. Next to Lindsay.
Bill Eisenhower with the Metropolitan Atlanta Urban Watershed Institute, longtime supporter of Eco Action.
And Dr. Frank Bouvet, our board president, just joined us.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, let's go to Lindsay.
Good evening, Lindsay Harper, a National Coordinator for Arm in Arm. Glad to be here. Good evening. Shall I pass it to someone, Dr. Yomi? I'm going to pass it to Columbus.
Yes.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Columbus Ward Neighborhood Planning Unit V, like in Victory. Also, Executive Director for the Peopletown Revitalization Corporation, longtime community active.
Pass it on to Mary Gay. Mary Gay, you are on.
Okay, I was talking to mute. I'm Mary Gay. I am a resident of Summer Hill in NPUV. I have a nonprofit, Sucor Inc. That's a workforce development that we're merging with community service. And I have a staffing agency that we're about to move into Pittsburgh Yard.
Great. And then we pass it on to Sister Joelle.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jewel Harper, and former environmental lawyer, and I'm happy to serve on the Eco Action Board.
Thank you, Ms. Harper. Mr. Talker, we pass it on to you. Mr. Talker, are you on? I see your face.
It says he's connecting to the audio. Maybe he's having a Wi-Fi issue.
Okay, well, yeah, I don't know why it's been doing that for a while. Could you can you help him to get in, please?
Yeah, I'm messaging him now to see. Or if you have his phone number, maybe.
While Jillian is doing that, I don't want to take it for granted. I want to appreciate your presence at this virtual meeting. I think Erica is also here. Dr. Erica, are you still there? Dr. Erica from Wawa.
Oh,
She was here a few minutes ago. She's probably join us again. Dr. Nataki, she's supposed to join us too. So let's what I'm trying to say is that I appreciate every one of you for being here. It means a lot. You call a meeting, people do not show up. Thank you for being here. The select few we have today will be very focused on what we're doing. And Mr. Tucker is now here. Mr. Tucker,
Yes, I'm here.
introduce yourself, please, very quickly.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't have audio. I had to call in order to hear anything. But my name is Alfred Tucker, and I'm a member of the Atlanta Watershed Learning Network.
Thank you, sir. With that said, we would like Jillian to kind of remind us why we're here based on what we did the last time. We have other people that have not introduced. Go ahead, please introduce you. Dr. Yolanda White, she's here with us, our former board member, a physician. Please introduce yourself, Dr. Yolanda White.
Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Yolanda White. I'm a pediatrician. I've been in practice for about 15 years. I've been specializing in environmental health for about the past 10 years. I address climate change, air pollution, water pollution, toxic chemicals. I've been knowing Dr. Yomi for several years. I was on his board for a while. I'm very interested in addressing environmental justice issues, making sure pediatric impacts are considered in our laws and policies, and I'm very excited to help this the athletes community.
Thank you very much, White. Jillian, are you ready?
Yes,
Go
sir.
ahead.
Yeah, I'll quickly share the agenda just to give everyone an overview.
Oh, Mr. Kelly,
Oh.
could you hold on, please?
Yeah,
Mr.
sure.
Kelly Jordan, will you zoom back? Let Mr. Kelly Jordan introduce himself. He's a strong supporter of Eco Action over the years, and he's a brother to me. I don't know what happened to me. Forgive me, okay?
It's quite all right, Yomi. You know, I know when you get old, you know, your memory fades, and so that's just how it is, you know. So, hello everybody. I'm Kelly Jordan. I'm long time supporter of Eco Action, and along with Ms. Jewel Harper here, I've served on the board of both Green Law and the Turner Environmental Law Clinic. Currently on the board of Truly Living Well Center for Urban Agriculture. And I am the founder of the Arabian Mountain National Heritage Area in South DeKalb.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
Happy to have you here. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Okay, now, is there anybody on the call that have not introduced himself or herself?
Gabrielle.
Anybody?
Hi, I'm Gabrielle.
Oh, Gabriela, the youngest among us. Okay, Gabriela, thank you. That's our youngest intern for Eco Action. Thank you, Gabriela. Okay.
Hello, I'm Patrick Davenport in Athens, Georgia.
yeah.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you. Anybody else who's from Athens, Clark County on this call? Jillian, you can continue now, please.
All right, that sounds great, thanks. Let me get my screen shared really quick. All right, so first of all, thank you everyone for joining us today. You know, even though it's in a virtual setting, we're happy to see your faces and get a chance to connect with everyone. Oh, I believe someone else just joined us. 1 second. Let me make sure we have everyone. Oh, my bad. Apologies. Okay, if someone just joined us, they didn't get a chance to introduce themselves. Chandra Farley just joined us.
Hey everyone, it's Chandra Farley.
Oh, sorry, I'm so sorry.
Super Southerner. That's okay. Hey Lindsay. Hey everybody.
Hello, Sean.
Welcome, Chandra.
Awesome, great. So yeah, thank you all for joining us this evening and introducing yourselves. And Dr. Erica Holloman just joined us as well, I believe. Okay, great. So just to get into our meeting goals and give you guys a brief overview of what we're doing today and trying to accomplish. Firstly, we'll be discussing the environmental justice issues in the Metro Atlanta area and in the other Georgia counties. And we'll be using like the raise hand and chat feature if you're having audio issues to kind of do the group activity to discuss those community issues. And then we'll be narrowing those concerns to come to a consensus about one or two environmental injustice issues to develop a statewide campaign on and kind of create an action plan moving forward and a team of committed individuals to kind of spearhead those actions for the 2020-2021 year. And we just, if you had just joined us, we just got done with the welcome introduction. So if you hadn't got a chance to introduce yourself, feel free to please speak up. But next we're going to be moving on into a quick meeting recap from our meeting in August, and then doing the group activity with a few community speakers, including Mr. Alan Booker, Dr. Nataki Osborne-Jelks, Lindsay Harper, and Dr. Yolanda White. So we're very lucky to have you all speak with us this evening. And then Dr. Yomi and Victoria will give our concluding remarks and kind of set up an actionable strategy for us moving forward. So now I'll go ahead and pass it over to Frank, our board president, if he has any other welcoming and kind of introducing thoughts before we move into the recap of last meeting.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Frank Beauvais. I'm the board president of Eco Action. My occupation is as an environmental epidemiologist. I've been working with Eco Action for many years. Eco Action has worked with communities across the state to help communities of low-income communities and communities of color to empower themselves to eliminate pollution. We've provided technical assistance in the form of research. We've helped communities communicate and organize and plan campaigns that are effective in fighting environmental issues. And basically we believe that if we work collectively to organize, we can make changes, we can empower ourselves and affect decisions that affect our lives. So in the past, the Grassroots Environmental Network was successful in a campaign to push the Environmental Protection Division, Georgia's state EPD, to open up its consent order process. They used to do it in secret when a polluter polluted and the EPD wanted to enforce an action. They did a consent order, but they did it in secret. They didn't allow the community affected by the pollution to have any input into the consent order. So we changed that. The Grassroots Environmental Network organized, advocated, put pressure, lobbied, whatever. We did all kinds of things, did research, and we got that changed. Today, there are a lot of issues that we could think about tackling statewide. There are energy issues such as polluting power plants, like the nuclear power plants and the coal plants, for example. We could be working with communities to have community solar, to fight for grants and funds so that homes can be rehabbed so they're energy efficient, not just weatherization, but rehabbed. There's also the Public Service Commission, which is in the pocket of Georgia Power. In 2 years from now, there'll be what's called an integrated review process. We may want to be involved in that because that dictates what Georgia Power will do in the next couple of years on renewable energy and so on. And in fact, there's a runoff election right now. Daniel Black Blackman, I think his name is Daniel Blackman, is running in our area for the Public Service Commission. So there's a runoff there, as well as the 2 Georgia Senate runoffs. So all these runoffs are important for Georgia and for the country in helping us fight environmental pollution and work for a sustainable economy and so on. So there are those issues. There are chemical pollution issues. There's ethylene oxide that a number of communities have been dealing with. Not as big in this state, but there is a group of chemicals called perfluoroalkyl substances that have contaminated drinking water in other parts of the country, and may have contaminated drinking water here in this state, although there hasn't been enough testing to identify it. And there's other chemical pollutants in drinking water that we could think about. There's global warming and climate change, and making sure that it's any policy changes, any actions on that front are equitable, that promote environmental justice. There's the siting of dangerous plants that we've worked with communities before. And there's also the fact that there are chemicals that are stored and transported through our communities without our knowledge of what's going through our communities or what's being stored. So there's the right to know issues around that. So these are some of the issues I thought about, but I'm sure there are others that we can bring up. But the idea is to have some kind of statewide campaign or effort that brings us all together so that we can work together and build our network. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Frank. Thank you very much. Jillian, I will suggest that you all on the recap, right? So that we can spend more time, so that it will not be like the last time, not to have adequate time for the people to share their concerns. Frank just laid out Eco Action Mission in the context of issues, but I have spoken with a few people who I would like them to share the environmental consensus issue that we should be focusing upon. Now, we can't do everything. The people from Athens-Clarke County, we have an obligation and a commitment to work with you, provide assistance to you directly. And that we're still working on that with Ovita, and I'm happy that we have our brother here. So that is still going to happen. But the issues or the concerns we want to lift up are those that are making us not to sleep, are those that are affecting us politically, are those that are impacting our ways of life. So as we look at these issues, at the end of the day, the game plan is for all to have a consensus. So with that said, I'm going to call on, Lindsay Harper, Miss Lindsay Harper, who has she's been working on nuclear issues. She's now working on climate change, and she's got a lot of experience locally, nationally, and internationally. I would like her to come in and put some of this issue in context with a focus on Georgia. Okay, so Lindsay, will you share that very briefly, and then I will call on Dr. Yolanda White.
I'd be happy to. Thank you, Dr. Yomi. Thank you for having me on this call. I'm really excited at this really incredible opportunity that we have. I know it's been a long year. We finally made it through the presidential election, and yet there is another leg, y'all, to the runoffs in January. And so I just briefly wanted to share a little bit about the work that I'm doing now and how I feel that perhaps we can work together to maximize this opportunity we have with all eyes on Georgia, both nationally and internationally. So the work that I'm doing arm in arm, we're looking to scale to 3.5% of the population in the US to ignite a transformational era, ending the climate crisis, centering racial and economic justice. We are doing that through acts of disruptive humanitarianism, which I can tell you a little bit more about. And we're also doing that through training. People understand that our country is messed up. They don't necessarily understand why. The Arm in Arm training helps to serve as something to help people connect the dots so that they understand how we kind of arrived at this socioeconomic political moment, and then resources and a vehicle to kind of move together to again end the climate crisis, just a crisis, centering economic and racial justice. So I say all that to say that in many of the conversations I've been able to have with Arm in Arm, also working with U.S. Climate Action Network, there are multiple national policy platforms being floated around at this time. And as I mentioned to you before, Georgia has a very unique opportunity, I feel, to enter into the national conversation around climate change and extractive energy economies and clean energy and what that really looks like, and to have it in a local and national way through the Public Service Commission and Senate runoffs. You know, a lot of, I'm sure you all know in the Zoom room that, you know, nuclear energy is considered the answer to climate change, and that, you know, it's considered this carbon-free, clean, renewable energy that can be used. And as we all know, you know, there are egregious environmental justice implications of these kinds of things. And so when we're thinking about models that could be replicated across the country, the Plant Vogel extractive energy economy model in this state could be replicated. That is something that Georgia, we are uniquely situated to be able to speak loudly and to scream to the rafters that the model we have in the state is there's no justice in it. And we cannot afford to have this replicated across the country in any other way. And so my ask to this network and to this body of people is, you know, how can we utilize the Public Service Commission and the Senate runoffs to essentially educate the world about what environmental justice looks like here in Georgia in the context of climate change? Understanding that we can make a big splash and then continue the conversation as more conversations are had at the national level, state level, and local levels around climate change, and specifically environmental justice in Georgia and across the Southeast. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Yeah, we want to educate the world, but we want to still focus on Georgia, okay? We want to still focus on Georgia and have the Georgia base. Bring international issues as a framework. We want to still focus on Georgia. And thank you for bringing that up. You know, she's very important. She said we have to maximize what the moment. We have to maximize the moment in the interest of environmental justice and, you know, climate change. And the political movement is here for us to maximize. That's what she's bringing to the table, and she has a lot of experience in helping us to move this forward. And connecting the dots, that's what eco-action, we do that very well. We have to connect the dots. To help our people do what? Connect the dots. Thank you. Any question for Lindsay or comment before we get Dr. Yolanda? Yeah. Can you no comment or question for her? And we bring Dr. Yolanda White, please share what she's saying that's bubbling up, that is making her angry. She wants something.
Okay, hello everyone. And to also piggyback on what Lindsay had mentioned, I'm also with Georgia Clinicians for Climate Action. We're a relatively new group. We're about a year old, and we communicate the health impacts of climate change in the state. And we are now creating a climate health resolution. I think this will be a first for the state, and this will be for the next legislative session. And so I hope to get your support and your endorsements, because, you know, climate change has, it increases the risk of a lot of health conditions, namely asthma, allergies, waterborne conditions, diarrhea, and other insect-like infections, like vector-borne infections, like tick infections, and even malaria and dengue fever, other rare conditions that, as the weather heats up, we're expected to see a lot more here. And it's always best to be proactive and also be preventive. And I know Dr. Yomi invited me here to talk about the Athens community. I was invited to visit the Athens community several years ago when a mutual friend of ours told me that they did an informal community health assessment going door to door, and they realized that just about every household had someone with a chronic medical condition, diabetes, heart disease, you know, infertility, birth birth complications, lupus. I mean, you name it. No household was spared. And there are also some point sources of pollution. You know, we can't always, you know, say this caused that, but we do know that reducing our risk of exposures is one way to protect our health. And we do know that there's a landfill out there that is polluting the air and possibly other natural resources. And so it's all about, you know, providing them with health protections. And that's why I'm here. I do like the idea of doing community health assessments. And I also like, I also appreciate EcoAction's past work in doing a community-based participatory research. I think that's what it was, I think that's the name of it, where you examined all the flooding in around the Vine City area in Atlanta and related that to asthma. But I think something similar can be done over in Athens, and also the CDC, they have a CASPER, community, it's like a community assessment, public health, oh, Frank, you know, but it's a way that we can look into the to the community, look at their risk, and also just try to do at least an assessment so we can find out what the problem is and then come up with some meaningful solutions. Ultimately, the goal is to, you know, reduce these disease clusters so they can have a healthy, productive life. Once this gets underway, I hope to have the support of you all.
Thank you very much, to Yolanda. I would like, you know, the gentleman, the commissioner from Athens Clarke County to respond. But before responding, let me say one or two things about as to why I personally asked Dr. Yolanda to join us to focus on Athens Clarke County. Athens Clarke County, Dr. Yolanda will be one of the people that will be providing assistance to you. Myself, Dr. Christina, our board president, and also Ms. Jewel Harper. We are still here, so we want, before we leave today, hopefully, you know, I'm trying to get Ovita from Athens to give us a date when we can have a meeting with your team. So that is what we need. That's what we need to do. So that would be one thing that is very important, because at the last meeting, there were about 4 or 5 people from Athens Clarke County, and they expressed commitment to follow up with us. So I'm begging them to please bear with us. If we can come up with a date today between Dr. Yolanda and the team here and the Athens representative as to when we can have a virtual meeting or face-to-face meeting that is socially distanced, let's talk about that today. And what we want to do, community assessment. We also want to have a profile of the issues. We have a landfill that the city says is not contaminated, the community says it's contaminated. What do we do with that? And how do we transform what they have there into something that can benefit community people? That is EcoAction's position. The landfill is there, and they have an agreement with the community that landfill will not be expanded. And that's the agreement. Our goal is to hold them, you know, to that agreement. For us to hold them to that agreement, we have to turn that landfill into something that will benefit the community. That's a long-term goal. That's where we are going, folks, with the Athens Clarke County. So that is my little contribution for this conversation. So could you please talk the gentleman from Athens Clarke County, because you are here, and I'm so happy because I didn't know anybody was coming there. Hello? Are you still there?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm still here.
Yeah, can you, because the commissioner, when you were here the last time, You, you expressed an earnest interest in moving forward.
Yes, there's a lot of interest in moving forward.
Yeah, so
And
today I'm listening, we are all listening to you, sir. Go ahead.
yeah, there's some interest in moving forward, and we'll greatly appreciate any assistance and help, to put this crisis behind us.
Okay, we want to help you to put the crisis behind you. This has been going on for more than 10 plus years, and you expressed that at our last meeting. So what I'm asking for is for you to look at your calendar today, if it's possible, or to let us know when you'll be available for a call with Dr. Yolanda and other members of our team to talk with you directly as to what we can do. We have a sense of what we can do. I really would like to come there and meet with you. We have to have a date. If you can give me a date today, I would look at my schedule. I will try and make it happen. It is important for us to talk one-on-one.
Yes.
So,
could I email you a date?
Yeah, email me a date, please, and let Ovita, Commissioner Ovita, let her be aware of this date, please.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very important. She's aware of it. And then the community people that were at the last meeting, let them be aware of that date, that it's okay with them, please.
Okay, will do.
Thank you so much. That is the focus on Athens-Clarke County. That is great. Thank you. So let us continue. Let's move on. Thank you, Commissioner. We also have I don't know whether Nataki is here.
There she is.
She is?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Oh, Prof. Okay. Before Professor comes, let me give you context to this. We're talking about environmental justice and putting an equity lens moving forward. And over the years, EcoAction has been advocating, helping community organize to get environmental justice in the context of equity. We've been doing that, but there is no federal law, only have executive order. And EcoAction is about helping to bring about change. And now the climate is right. We have President-elect Biden. And over the past 3 months, one of our leaders in Georgia have given testimonies to the Congress for an environmental justice bill. Environmental justice for all is being considered as we speak right now at the Congress. And Dr. McLean, Dr. Bullard, and our own Dr. Nataki Osborne, they give testimonies. So I asked her to kind of share with us our thought regarding to what happened there and where she sees or where we are moving towards with regard to environmental justice in this country and in Georgia in particular. Prof. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yomi, and good evening, everyone. So there are a couple of things that I'll just kind of briefly highlight. Dr. Yomi reached out. I did get a chance to work with some other leaders to present to members of Congress. So there were kind of two things happening. One, there have been kind of hearings on the Environmental Justice for All bill, as well as a hearing that was specifically on climate change related issues in coastal communities, and specifically the issue of funding for coastal communities. So one thing that I talked about in my testimony at that hearing before some members of the House, excuse me, the House, well, actually, I'm sorry, not just the House, but both, there were representatives from both, they were just from the House, but from both Democrats as well as Republicans in terms of the Natural Resources Committee, and there was a subcommittee on
wildlife, oceans, and something else I'm going to forget. Oceans, wildlife, and I'm forgetting water. It was the other W. And so they were specifically looking at funding for coastal communities. There unfortunately were some people who were talking against issues around environmental justice. And essentially saying that by us trying to pursue or advance environmental justice, that we are trying to create more burdens for people who are already overburdened. So that was very disappointing to see, but there definitely were a chorus of voices from across the country, from tribes and from other areas that really upheld the fact that environmental justice is the direction that we need to be pushing in, and that there needs to be more funding for communities specifically to address climate change issues. Environmental justice communities should have the funds that they need to address climate justice issues. And we talk specifically about that funding being able to go down to the community level, and not just to municipalities or to state governments, but to the people on the ground who can help direct the funds in the ways in which they are needed to address those real on the ground issues. So that was a piece of it. Also, in terms of the Environmental Justice for All bill, I mean, I think it is widely recognized that it will be a long haul to get this bill actually passed. It's still at the first stage. It's been introduced in the House of Representatives. There have been some hearings on it, but it hasn't passed the House yet. But there are some really important things that I think are key tenets of the bill. One thing that I'll point out is that it would amend the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to allow private citizens as well as organizations that experience discrimination based on race or national origin to seek legal remedies when a program, a policy, or a practice causes a disparate impact. And what's really important here when we think about environmental justice, it's about the disparate impacts. It may not always be possible to prove that there was intentionality around those impacts, but if those impacts result from certain actions, that is environmental, injustice, that's environmental racism. And so this bill would seek to, amend the Civil Rights Act to cover these types of issues. Also, the bill would be poised to provide about $75 million annually for research and program development grants to reduce health disparities and to improve public health in vulnerable communities. That would include increasing the amount of funds available for environmental justice grants. Many of you all are probably familiar with the environmental justice grants that currently exist. Most of them come through the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, and these are small grants, $20,000 to $30,000 grants. And so one thing I talked about in my testimony was the need to have multi-year funding available to grassroots and environmental justice communities and organizations. And I really tried to stress that in terms of the challenges that we face and need to address in our communities, that it's difficult, to really see change happen. It happens just too incrementally if we are dealing with these, 1-year grants for $20,000 or $30,000. It takes you 6 months to find out, if you've even been awarded the grant. It might take another 3 months before you, can tap into the funds. And so with that sort of start-stop approach, it's difficult for us to have the funds readily available to address the issues in comprehensive ways. The other thing, just in light of time, because there are lots of things that are in this bill, but the other thing that I think is hugely significant is that this bill would strengthen and update NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act. This is critical right now because the Trump administration has been pushing to overhaul it and to take away some of the key important features of the bill as is with respect to us looking at issues of cumulative risk and impacts. And so in terms of what the Environmental Justice for All bill is pushing, is that the assessment, of cumulative impacts would would be more front and center, in NEPA kind of moving forward. So, it would really be trying to not only address the issues, if the Trump administration is fully, able to roll back, things, the important aspects of NEPA, from this bill, we would be looking at not only trying to get back perhaps what was lost, but then trying to move it forward to strengthen it and to make sure that it's updated. So I'll kind of stop there. Maybe one last thing that I'll mention that I think is of relevance to this group is the fact that so WAWA, as well as Partnership for Southern Equity, are a part of the Environmental Justice Forum, which is convened by We Act for Environmental Justice in New York. And as a part of that, we recently started a cumulative impacts and risks sort of working group. And so in terms of all of the folks who are part of that working group, what We Act has asked us about is what's kind of going on in our states with respect to cumulative risk and impacts. Is there, for instance, some sort of environmental justice advisory council or board, kind of at the state level or at any level, of government. And obviously, here, well, in Atlanta and Fulton County, we do not have that in a formal sense. But also, there's some places that are looking at cumulative risk and impacts legislation. And so the idea would be ultimately, what could we try to push for in the state of Georgia? And how can, one of the questions that was asked also is, do we have some sort of network? And so we talked both about this network as well as the network that Dr. McLean has been trying to, sort of reestablish as well. And so it seems like there are opportunities for us to, really come together with all of these collective efforts on things that could have some significance and impact, not only at the state level, but, locally in our different municipalities and counties as well.
Thank you so much, Prof. Comments, questions. She have laid not just a brief of her testimony, but the tenets of the environmental justice for all and bill, and also the implications for us as a state and the network that we're engaged with. Any comment, question? This is very important in helping us to zero in on what do we want to focus on. Is it cumulative impact? Is it setting up an environmental justice advisory board at the state level that is mandated by law that will filter into the federal one? Or is it focused maximizing the moment that we help organize, get those 2 senators into office and get black men as for the PSC? Those are things that we need to discuss right now. That's why kind of move it forward and let it bubble up. We have a PSC, Sandra Foley, she's our director for energy, and energy is vital to what we're discussing. So if there are no questions for profs or comments, I would like Chandra to share her thoughts with us. Any comments for? Okay. Chandra,
on the Public Service Commission only? On the Public Service Commission?
Go ahead. I can't hear you.
We are very excited to have a Public Service Commission runoff. We did go to a runoff 2 years ago. The Public Service Commission elections are on 2-year cycles. They serve staggered 6-year terms. So this is very, very exciting. Daniel would be the first Democrat elected to statewide in office in Georgia in like almost 20 years. I think a lot of people don't realize that about the Public Service Commission. So all of those things are exciting. There is some intel Also about public service commissioners, our last 3 commissioners were actually appointed because they have retired after being elected, which allows the governor to appoint someone to their seat. And that, because this commissioner had already signaled that he was retiring, but then decided to run, is I think something that should always also bring us out in droves, and to make sure that people are not forgetting this office. There are a lot of folks trying to do a lot of work to make sure that all these truckloads of money and resources that everybody says is about to pour into Georgia are not forgetting the Public Service Commission race, as we are, of course, very excited about the Senate races. So, you know, the Clean Energy for Biden group, some local folks. So just in any spaces that we are in where folks are talking about the Senate races, we need to also be talking about the Public Service Commission race. Big win that race was moved to the same day as the Senate runoffs instead of December 1st. So that's exciting. So I think we have the makings of another very strong turnout, particularly because it will just be the senators and the Public Service Commission on the ballot. And I think what is, you know, probably drove a lot of this is party, which is fine. So I think, you know, a lot of folks are regrouping. Partnership for Southern Equity and its We the Plug Though collective did, you know, had a lot of great activities, a lot of social media graphics and things like that they are updating to circulate in community, focused on the runoff. There's some events, fundraising events coming up for Daniel specifically. So there's some calls happening right now, and we'll keep those circulating as we get them. So yeah, that's what I have. If Daniel was to win, he would be 1 vote of 5, right? Still. So we have but it would be a major shift. We think there's one other commissioner who was elected, Commissioner Shaw, who may be movable on some things, but we also have to start the work now to start finding somebody to run against Tim Echols in 2022. And then, you know, to try to get to 2 or 3 people at least on the commission who can really start to make decisions in the interest of, you know, a more clean and environmentally just future in Georgia. Because they set the policy. Like, I mean, federal, you know, things will be great, but when it comes down to trying to tell Georgia Power what to do, the Public Service Commission makes that decision.
Okay, thank you. We will stay connected with you, Chandra, because those of you may not know, Daniel has been has been running for this office for more than 10 years. This is his moment, and we have to help him get elected. He's been doing it, you know, this is his moment, in my opinion, and we are in a position to make it happen by supporting him, also by getting other people to support him. That is action education to shift the decision making at the PSC. That's what we're trying to do.
I have a question, Dr. Yomi and everybody else.
Yes,
are there any limitations on the amount of support that an organization like this can show in a partisan election? And if there aren't any, I would suggest, I actually sit on a group that is supporting Reverend Warnock and his environmental platform. And so we just came out of a meeting, and there are many things that are out there to be done, so that if it is all right to share the information as to how people can connect and support, whether it's monetary or volunteer efforts, I'd like to share that information. If it is not legally sound, given the organization of this organization, I will be quiet.
You know, this is what I can say. Eco action, our status, we cannot support any party or candidates, but individuals can, and that is what we're asking. We cannot, period. You know, and so you know, I connect to other person, that person will connect to another person. That's what we're saying. Our focus is action education to drive the policy change. You heard what, you know, Lindsay said. It's about connecting the dots. This is our opportunity to help our people connect the dots rather than misinformation that's going on right now about the people they know can change things. What they say about, you know, Dr. Wanak, you know, just tell lies.
Yeah. Dr. Yomi, and to that point, Ms.
Yeah.
Harper, I would say kind of what organizations have that different status, such as that 501c4, like Sierra Club, where we could leverage them already across the state having some verbal commitment to renewable energy, the jargon, yada, yada, that I don't have to really go into too much for this group of folks here, but how do we leverage that and these other organizations that can and would be willing to on behalf of community? And is that something that we think about as a strategy as well?
Yeah, that is an what do you call it, tactic in terms of moving forward. Once we agree, we have to agree before we go to the details. The Sierra Club, we have a 501 for, you know, they can help, you know, to transfer the funds to them, you know, to support our candidate, to support the candidates that we want them to support. Yeah, Sierra Club can help. Georgia won also.
And I think Georgia Conservation Voters with Briante Markle, I think her organization has that slight different status where they are able to actually endorse.
Yeah.
Right. And there's several other environmentally oriented organizations that are doing it. But again, I think they're all 501c4s.
Yeah. So we thank you, you know, Madam Joel, for bringing that up, because that's very important. We cannot go beyond our boundary. However, we can do the training, we can do the action, we can cost, you know, cost what we have to cost to move it. And that's what this network is all about. You know, Erica, you told us, you know that. So any other comment about Professor Nataki comments and the energy that Chandra brought in terms of black men? We have to support them.
I will just add kind of one comment to the previous one, and that's, you know, look at training the execs of those 501c4s that could potentially too. I see them as folks that need to be trained on equity issues as well.
that is in my face. Okay, that's in my face issue. You know, in my face issue is another conversation. Our focus today is how we bring this energy together to agree on one issue or getting one. From what I'm hearing from you all, Mr. Columbus and Kelly, any comment, and Mr. Bill Eisenhower, our water guru, let's hear from those three people. Then you tell me what is coming out from all this conversation. What can we say? Well, Eco Action, our network, can do focus on this issue, and this is why.
Well, Dr. Yeoman, one of the things I've been worrying about more in particular, all this gentrification that's going on around the belt lines in our community where we have all these brownfields, and that some of them is being developers getting money even from the feds to quote clean up the brownfields, and we're not for sure exactly how the regulation is done or who actually regulate the cleanup plan or the remediation, other things. So we're worried about what's going on, particularly in the brown and black community around in particular, the brownfield that we have that's in our, like in Peoplestown, we got a lot of brownfields and all that Beltline track. And you know, people, they're building houses and green space on this stuff, but nobody actually has a real sense about what was cleaned up from the phase one environmental, phase two environmental, the plan to clean it up. The cities don't have like nobody who monitor the situation. They just accept what the people say and do. And that, and of course, you know, we have a history of stuff being built on landfill, like we contaminated the soil that was on the old landfill that was in Peoplestown. The little girl was burned for the methane gas coming out of the ground. We just don't know that in terms going forward, in terms of future for our kids that going, the family that gonna be living in these new development, tending to some of those places, how we can really figure out ways and means to make sure the remediation plan is a good plan, is one that can be monitored because somebody can look at and make sure what is being did is done correctly, so they don't end up being something like happened to us 20 years from now, that another methane gas is coming out of the ground because they built on these contaminated soil and something happened, people start suffering some health issues around the living on the brownfields. I'm just really concerned about so much of the development in the city of Atlanta that's being built on it, and you see these developers, they're running after these brownfields and talking about redevelopment, but nobody really monitors and keeping keeping abreast about what's going on and make sure that it's being regulated correctly. So I really would like to us to kind of put that in some type of inquiry about what we're doing that around environmental justice going on, and that we know there ain't definitely no equity going on at all, but definitely how we can try to make sure this situation is being monitored by somebody or independent body about the development around brownfields and these inner city neighborhoods. And I'm sure it's happening here in Atlanta, it's happening all over Georgia. So that once the developer says he figure he can make a lot of money, he going after those brownfields.
Yeah, Mr. Columbus, I would say three things. On brownfield, your issue is open up the brownfield process. One, there's a protocol how you go about cleaning up the brownfield. EPA has an outline how you do that. And these developers are following through and doing that in Georgia. But a lot of times the communities do not benefit from this process. And that's what you are saying. So that is an issue that we put out there. Open up the brownfield process in the interest of the people. That's the way I see what you are saying. That's an issue we will consider, in our discussion, in identifying what we want to focus upon. Brownfield is eco action. We did the study in MPUV. We identified all the brownfield sites. And the largest one in MPUV is the one on University Avenue. And we spend time trying to come up with a development that will benefit the people. What happened? Didn't go the way we wanted it. So we have real life experience with what is going on in brownfield in MPUV. We do. But it's beyond just MPUV, even in South Georgia. So this team will look at it. Brownfield, that's what Mr. Columbus is adding, putting on the table. Mr. Bill, any comments or question about what Mr. Columbus is saying or what you want to add? I know you add water. Mr. Bill. You muted yourself, Bill.
You're muted.
Or mute him, please. We can't hear him.
How about that?
Yes, there you go.
I think Mr. Ward brought up an extremely important, valid point. And I'd like to connect up with that. And it is statewide. There are other places that I know you know about, Dr. Yomi, in the state that are dealing with the same issues. And you know that we have some very good allies in some of the regulatory agencies that will be very helpful in dealing with the brownfield issues. But the other thing I wanted to relate to that is the reading material that was recommended for us before this meeting I've forgotten the name of the woman who wrote it, but it was basically saying that the new administration is going to be concerned about all these issues and find ways to work them into environmental justice issues and equity issues into future planning. And that's great stuff, my deal, of course, is that I'm always looking for trying to get things accomplished that, and I suspect that we're finally going to get an infrastructure bill. Can't imagine why we didn't get it for the past 4 years, but I have imagined why, but we won't get into that. I think, and to do that, what happens then is the bill gets passed nationally. You remember President Obama put forward, what, $278 billion for infrastructure, for shovel-ready projects. And almost all that money went to Republican counties because they were the ones who'd planned ahead and had this, that said, we are going to do this, we need the money. They had the money to do the planning to begin with. But somehow we've got to get figure out how to get out from behind that 8 ball and get some planning going. That's what I'll be looking forward to pushing throughout the state, so we can get some shovel-ready projects going.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bill.
But also, Dr. Young, we dealing with the flooding issue and particularly NPUB and some of the neighborhoods like Peopletown and Summer Hill in terms of the water quality and what's going on with the combined sewage in terms of sewage and water, rainwater going to the same pipe and end up in our backyard and our front yard and stuff like that, and that we got to fight for the legislation that the city's doing to help kind of control that. But we got a long way to go in terms of fighting what's going on with the water quality of the city of Atlanta, but also in terms of how you prevent the flooding and taking action to make sure that the city, the watershed management and the developers is making sure they're doing the right things when they start and at the end.
Yeah, you know what? I think in support of what Mr. Ward is saying, like with their health protections, I think we should definitely have something in place to do some biomonitoring on the communities, at least some type of testing to see if they're impacted, and also environmental testing of the air and the water. That way we'll have some data to defend our decisions.
This is Lindsay. I had a couple of thoughts I wanted to share, I guess some questions for the group, and just thinking about, how do folks feel about maybe some short-term and some maybe mid-range goals, so that we can maybe figure out some measurable, achievable things so that we can be successful. So just really honing in on what those things are. And I know that this conversation is for us to do that. So just circling back around and wondering, what is it that we can achieve for the runoffs, like in January? And just thinking about what I think that I hear is an opportunity for some kind of value that we can put forth across communities from Georgia. And so again, I propose, it's kind of like we need the Public Service Commission and the Senate offices to achieve these things in order for our communities to be safe. And up until this point, they have allowed injustices, and those injustices have allowed for us to be insecure. That's insecure with our health, it's insecure with our housing and with our food. So I'm just saying all that to say, I'm wondering again if there's a kind of a value that we can distill our experiences down to and use that as an entry point and or education opportunity from Georgia to the larger folks around what an extractive energy economy really looks like. We have dirty industries. They've dirtied our air. I've heard asthma. They've dirtied our land, whether that be through pollution or, through the brownfields. And they dirty the water, so it really sounds to me like we've got a bone to pick with dirty industries and how our dirty industries are governed no matter where they are in the state. So I'm just trying to pull together some key bullet points I feel that perhaps we can pull together to create something that we can all get behind and push together.
Good.
I like that. I would like more comments I think, talk about the dirty industries, talk about the Senate and the PS and the PSC. I also think we have to look about it, to try to look at the bigger picture, which is environmental justice. We're driving environmental justice. We want to get environmental justice. We are living in an environment that is unjust. We're living in an environment that is not equitable. So we are pushing to organize ourselves to maximize the Senate and the PSA as a way of getting environmental justice for all. Is that what I'm hearing? And also, bear with me also, brownfield is an environmental justice issue.
Yep.
It is. So when Mr. Columbus mentioned that, yeah, it's an environmental justice issue. So that comes around there too. Those are the details that we want to work on, and then the long-term goals and the short-term goals. But before we go into that, let's pick out, what is the framework? What do you want to call what we want to do? What do we want to call it first? What do you want to call it? Frank, Dr. Yolanda, Dr. Erica, Bill, what do you want to call it? We've been talking about environmental justice, we're talking about climate change, and we have an agreement to help the Athens-Clarke County, but as a statewide network, what do we want to call our campaign?
Dr. Yomi, especially since we have Dr. White here with us,
Yes.
It seems to me that everything we've mentioned has a health implication.
Yes.
And we know that environmental justice, the health outcomes of environmental injustice are huge and have all kinds of other kinds of ramifications. So I would suggest that this organization and its partners could focus on particular health problems that are manifested in communities, and you identify one or two communities or maybe several across the state so that you're impacting several geographic areas. I think brownfields is huge, and I think there's clearly a role that eco-action could play, certainly with regard to educating citizens on how to manage brownfield activity within the community from a community perspective. And certainly with the water issues, that's huge. And let's face it, the city of Atlanta is under a consent decree to fix that same stormwater overflow, the whole combined CSO issue. So there's got to be something that this organization could focus on, is putting pressure on the powers, wherever they are, municipal powers or state powers or whatever, to specifically address that issue with regard to stormwater. I'm sure it's in other places in the state, but certainly in the city of Atlanta, there is actually a court order that requires the city to address this issue, and to push that, I think, would be something that this organization might want to consider. I think what I'm saying is, overall, I suggest that we look at the health consequences of environmental injustice.
Yes, so listening to everybody, I'm going to lift this up, and I want feedback how we can wordsmith it and come up with something better. All we're saying is we're talking about environmental justice, climate change in the interest of our health. That is the focus of this campaign. We can call it in the interest of our health, simple like that, and then other byline, environmental justice, climate change, and brownfield. And we're doing this through organizing community-based research and training. That's how we're doing. Eco-action, we have to help people organize. That's our byline. We also have to provide training, and we also have to have community-based research. Those are the three things we're doing. Lindsay, if you are still there, you say we should come up with long-term goals and short-term objectives. Now, we can try and do that here, but I think moving forward, to have a team of people from this network to be given that task to come up with the specific long-term goal. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. To come up with the long-term goals and short-term goals. Dr. Yolanda, and Lindsay, the general, the assistant.
I want to save your voice just a bit, Yomi, if I can, by picking up on where Jewel left off about the notion that public health risk may be the unifying force we can work on. And it covers so many things, including those folks down in Brunswick who've got the barrels of chemicals from Hercules down there in their inland waterways, and the CSO issue and the brownfields and so forth. And all of them come back to public health risks.
So,
what I was thinking about is going back to what Lindsay had talked about, trying to get things organized so that we can get the right people in office in January the 5th. Is it the 5th? Yeah. But it can still come around this issue of public health issues, which everybody's talking about in terms of the coronavirus right now. But it's a whole array of stuff where, and it isn't, we get into we might get into trouble if we start banging on the people who are doing the heavy pollution. But as an abstraction, everybody, all these different groups are doing it, and it's a public health risk all the way around, and it affects everybody. And what affects the poor communities affects the rich communities, only not quite so much, but it's still there, including the air stuff, health issues.
I have a question, Dr. Yomi, kind of from a scientific and community perspective with both hats. Oftentimes we say public health as the end metric, but what do we really mean as a way that we can really talk about measurable impacts? Because when we say public health, it is very broad, and in that, even if we could get a little specific on some of what those indicators may be, such as quality of life, life expectancy, economic mobility, as a starting place to say, because public health is so wide, within that, what then may be variables or factors that we could say these would be the three that we would focus on? Or I just feel sometimes we get lost when we say public health endpoints, and it's real easy to throw a lot of things that way, and then we never see this this metric move. Just thoughts.
Yeah, I hear you. Quite frankly, public health, our health, we will have to define the indicators of progress in what we do. We will have to do that. So there's no, I hear you, and we will do that. We are required to do that. Quality of life, job opportunities, those are some of the things that we're talking about. Equitable development. We want development, but we want development that will benefit the people. So those are the things that we have to consider. But that is health. What is, health by definition?
Well,
yes, ma'am.
Well, I was just going to say, to that end, we have some examples in Georgia. I think I talked to you guys about this before. A study was done by some students at Emory's School of Public Health. They did an assessment of rural Georgia, and they looked at the fact that there is clearly not enough broadband. So they looked at the data to determine the impact of not having access to broadband on environmental justice communities in rural Georgia. And what they found, and they related it to the incidence of COVID death. And what they found was a 700% increase in the African American and poor population in terms of I'm not saying this well. In other words, the potential for death from COVID was 700% higher in those environmental justice communities in rural Georgia than it was for those who were not poor and who were not low wealth communities. The idea being that those communities did not have access to teledoc or telemedicine services because they didn't have broadband. So, I mean, that's one particular example that's, that could be disseminated to people. It's a health consequence. It's an environmental justice health consequence. And it has to do with something that's not, it's an environmental consequence of not having access to broadband. It's a, technological deficiency. So.
Well, the details in terms of indicators of progress in public health, I can assure you that we have to do that. But I first agree. The question I'm asking myself, asking you, do we all sign on to public health as the driving force of our environmental justice, climate change, brownfield? Do we get a consensus to that?
You're breaking up, Dr. Yomi.
Oh, forgive me. Thank you, Bill. I'm asking myself, asking you, do we all sign on to the notion that public health is undergirding our campaign for environmental justice, climate change, and brownfield in the context of the Peace and Public Service Commission and also the Senate seats? That is what I'm hearing.
I like that.
Do we have an agreement on that?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a consensus on that?
Yep.
Yes.
I'm sorry, do you mind repeating? I want
vote yes.
to make sure that I heard everything that you said.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to ask the same thing with Dr. Yomi. Sorry.
Let me repeat myself. Okay. We will have a very good conversation about health as underlying, and according to the WHO Health Organization, says that health is not just the absence of disease, but is the physical, the optimum of the physical, mental, and social well-being. That's what health is: physical, mental, and social well-being. It includes the economic. So if we accept that as, what's wrong? Can you hear me now?
Position yourself by the microphone and stay steady, I think.
Okay. Okay. Public health underlies our campaign for environmental justice, climate change, and brownfield.
Yes.
Do we all sign on to that?
Sure.
Is that a consensus? Knowing that we have to define the indicators of this public health, we'll do that. But first, let's agree on the theme, and then we'll work out the details.
I agree.
Okay.
I'm in agreement, Dr. Yomi.
I think everybody in agreement.
Is anyone from Athens Clarke County has spoken? Do we have anyone?
Oh. We're down a couple.
The commissioner, is he still there? The commissioner? Oh, let's go. Well, it's not there, but we will. The report of this meeting will be shared with everyone. But if Jill, and can you in terms of this decision, this is where we want to go. Could you then go back to the 3 items for our actionable strategy that we intend to use to help us as we move forward? Jill, are you still there?
Yes, sir. I'm pulling it up right now.
Okay.
All right.
It's about power. We're talking about the elections. We are looking about power stuff here. So those are the 3 things that will guide how we move forward. As Lindsay said, go ahead and read it.
Excuse me. So our three elements that we want to kind of use to guide our actionable strategy for our recommendations are informed by the history of systemic environmental change and civil rights in Atlanta and Georgia communities, and are guided by three community organizing questions. We've used these previously in Eco Action and kind of use them each time with the Grassroots Network as well. The first one is, what do you want for equity, environmental justice in your community and the state of Georgia, long and short-term goals? The second question is, who has the power to give you what you want for environmental justice in your community and the state of Georgia? And this is a power analysis. And then the third question is, how do you get equity and environmental justice in your community and the state of Georgia? And this is a strategy and tactics step.
Thank you. So in summary, these three questions will inform and guide us as we try to sort out the long-term goals and the short-term goals. And we would like a team of people, volunteers, to be constituted today to take away what we agree upon and come up with some details of long-term goals and short-term goals. I would like volunteers today before you go. I suggested Dr. Yolanda White, Dr. Nataki Osborne-Jex, what's Chandra? Is she gone? Chandra Foley?
I'm
Yes.
here.
Okay, Chandra, yeah, please.
Yes.
All of the board members are the right to be part of this. You know, Dr. Frank will be our board president. This is for real. This is the real work now we're going to.
Yeah, I volunteer.
Huh?
I volunteer.
Okay, sir, thank you. Then Mr. Columbus.
No, I tried, Dr. Young, but I ain't looking for nothing else to do.
I know you are in so many things, but we need your voice. The reason you have to represent the community. Mr. Alembuka from Brunswick is not here today. The people from Athens-Clarke, the commissioner from Athens-Clarke County, Vita, will be part of this. I would suggest they be part of it. And Dr. Who else is here?
Dr. Yomi, I apologize. I was moving around in the background, so I heard my name called. But what is it that you're asking us to do?
Already say yes to us, man. Come back up now. We need you, Prof. Point simple. We're trying to constitute a team that will transform our decision to an actionable broad outline before we go into the details. That's all. We have notes we will share, and that notes will be built
Gotcha.
up. Yes.
Okay.
You can add me to that list. This is Lindsay Harper.
Okay. Oh, yes, definitely. Thank you, Lindsay.
Sure.
Count me in as well, Dr. Yomi. Yolanda.
I already mentioned your name. You hear me? You're the first person I mentioned.
I'm sorry, I stepped away.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else who would like to be part of this?
So far, I have Lindsay, Nataki, Yolanda. I think I might have missed someone in the beginning, though.
Who do you have?
Lindsay, Nataki, and Yolanda so far.
Frank, Dr. Frank Bouvet.
I apologize. I thought I missed someone. Thank you.
Dr. Frank Bouvet.
And Chandra, and you probably missed me.
Chandra Fali,
I was voluntold as well.
And
don't you have Mr. Ward?
Yes, Mr. Ward. If he gives me a little nod.
I would like somebody among those people to convene the meeting. Who will facilitate this process? Dr. Yolanda and Lindsay. those two people, let them be the co-facilitator of this meeting.
And I'm also adding myself, since I, of course, go to the School of Public Health at Emory.
And any of the board members always add value. Dr. Christina, she's not here, but she have expressed interest in part of this. So I will add her to it, Dr. Christina Fuller.
I want to throw one thing out. I believe it was Lindsay that brought it up. The January 5th deadline. And so I'm wondering if, when you're thinking about all the midterm, long-term things, you might try to frame some of it up in terms of what we can feed out in the next 2 or 3 weeks to affect the January 5th election. There's got to be some stuff that pops up.
We have to start thinking about that right now.
Yeah, make that an objective.
Yeah, and you know, Lindsay, she got some ideas already. You know, so when do you have to have the next meeting team that have been put together to advance this cause? I think you're all here, and not everybody, but most of you are here. Can you agree on a date today, or you want to bring us, Lindsay, and there to send you some dates?
Is it possible to meet the week after Thanksgiving? Are folks around that week?
No sooner than that?
Sure, if folks are down. I'm working Monday and Tuesday of next week.
Oh, Thanksgiving's the next week.
Mm-hmm.
Oops.
Tuesdays work for me, so.
Tuesdays?
Yeah, Tuesdays are fine here too.
Okay.
Work for me as well.
Okay, well, all right. Well, if that's the case.
Here.
Okay. Well, is next Tuesday too soon, or do y'all want to do December 1st?
That
I mean, let's do next Tuesday. If folks are down for that, let's go on and get it moving. There are only so many of us.
Yay.
Tuesday afternoon is good for me.
You said next Tuesday, Columbus?
Yeah, afternoons are better.
It's better than this right now.
No, I can do Tuesday evening too now, but I was just saying not Tuesday morning.
Okay. Well, how about the same time of day? Could y'all do a 5:30 to, we'll just do 5:30 to 7, and we don't necessarily have to use the whole thing. Does that work?
Perfect.
Great. Jalen, who do we look to help assist with the calendar invite? Could we look to you, or is there someone else?
Yes, I could do that. I'll send that along with the recording and everything, so.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Of course.
Any other action items we need to take care of, Dr. Yomi?
No, just to thank you all for being patient with one another and being patient with me. And thank you, Bill, for always speaking the truth.
Always being
so, you know,
I wish
so
that meeting was that easy always. It's never that easy to set a meeting. That was like magic.
And Dr. Yomi, can we make sure that Ovita or someone from Athens Clark County could make that meeting on Tuesday, since they weren't able to sign on to the public health?
Well, you need to send them a note.
Okay, yeah, make sure.
So Gabriella Harris joined for Tuesday as well in the chat box.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Oh, great.
Gabriella,
Come on.
She's the leader. She's our leader for tomorrow.
What a team.
Well, thank
Sounds
you all.
great. Congratulations, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you
Dr.
very
Yomi,
much.
I'm going to have to get off. I have another call, but, you know, call me.
I'll call you by Friday.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Thanks, Yolanda. I see your note, and yes to that.
Okay, yes, funding.
Yes. Yeah. Y'all have a good evening.
See you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Frank, Mr. Columbus, Dr. Yolanda, Lindsay, Bill, Chandra, I don't see other people. And also Kelly's gone. And those people that have left, we also thank them.
Yep, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yolanda, you'll be, looking forward to connecting.
Likewise.
Talk
Thank
to
you all.
soon.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Yomi and
Thank
everybody.
you.
Y'all have a good
Thank
evening.
you. Thank you.
Good night, y'all.
Good
Thank you.
night.
You.
Right.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Tucker.
Mr. Tucker, thank you. Victoria, boy, yummy.
Hello,
She's-
hello.
Oh, Lord.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you so much.
You were supposed to make closing remarks.
I have a couple closing remarks. I didn't know. It sounded like we were ending.
Yeah,
I
please
know,
go
I
ahead
was
and
wondering that too.
Just for the record, please, Victoria, please go ahead and make your closing remarks, please. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. I mean, it was already really covered, but in terms of action items, it sounded like the main things were to, one, definitely stay plugged into the Public Service Commission and Senate runoff races. And it sounds like there'll be some short-term action leading up to that on an individual basis. And then just how do we utilize that to contextualize and educate around environmental justice and, the climate crisis more broadly. After that, also interested to hear more from Athens and Clark County. Patrick will let folks know his schedule for a call or distance meetup to make a plan of action. Columbus would also like us to come up with ways to combat gentrification surrounding brownfields and new development. Also to come up with some specific indicators of public health to incorporate into our goals so that it's a little more specific and actionable. Yeah, those were the main action
Yeah.
items.
Those are excellent. Victoria, forgive us. Okay. Next time you're a board member, please stop and say, well, I have this. I wish, I wish this was retro